everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Darren Sapanik. I'm the head of partnerships at Elevar. And on behalf of both Elevar and our wonderful partner, Hawk Media, we want to thank you for joining us today. I think we've got some fantastic content prepared for you, and it's all based on the most common questions that our two companies get all the time about Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. Now, there are more questions than we could possibly address in like 30 to 40 minutes, but we're going to get to some of the most common and pressing, and hopefully you'll find this extremely informative. I'm joined today by Jerica Kukowski, who is our technical product manager at Elevar, and David Weiss, who is a UX engineer at Hawk Media. And they are both going to have a discussion today. I'm going to go off camera. I want you to know that you can submit questions during the webinar at any time in the Q&A box. That's, if you hit that little Q&A icon at the bottom, you can submit your questions. I'm going to be taking a look at those. If there's an easy answer, I might just answer you back right away. But otherwise, we're going to take those and answer the questions at the end of the webinar to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered and we can share them with the rest of the audience. As usually, if one person has that question, lots of people have that question. So I am going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Jerica and David, and they can begin by introducing themselves a little better than I did. And enjoy, everybody.
Thank you so much, Darren. Hi, everyone. I'm David Weiss. I'm at Hawk Media. I'm the UX specialist. So UX being user experience. And I have a bunch of clients, and my goal with them and what I work on with them is to help them think about their websites and kind of online presence from a user experience perspective.
And hello, everyone. I am Jerica Krakowski. So I'm a technical product manager at Elevar. That means I get to spend my days deep in Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics and doing all the fun things that come with data collection.
Awesome. Jerica, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, especially from someone who spends, like you said, your days deep in Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. I have a lot of questions. My clients have a lot of questions for me. I'll relay those to you. But I think this is going to be really good. My clients are always looking for that extra edge. What else can I do to increase conversions, to better my presence, better my ads, things like that. And kind of always usually comes back down to data, like what are you seeing, what are you tracking? So I think this is going to be super relevant, and I'm very excited.
Same here. I think we're two sides of the same coin, because one part is got to collect the accurate data, but another part is what do I do with the accurate data? So I'm excited.
Exactly. Cool. Okay. So I think I believe correctly understanding data and acting on it is like the biggest opportunity with my clients, like I said. And I think a lot of them are just not even sure how data can help them. So I think to start everything, I wanted to ask you, why should we care about data at all?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So I kind of think this relates back to, the overall goal of every single merchant is to increase revenue. When you invest so much in ad spend, you need to be able to make strategic business decisions to increase ROI and increase revenue. Take like the analogy of shooting an arrow at a target. If you can see 40% of the target, how likely are you to hit a bullseye? Now imagine if you can see 100% of the target, do your chances of hitting the bullseye increase? Clear, clean, accurate data gives you the full picture. It gives you the full target. That's why it's important.
Okay, great. I'll try to remember that. I think from my client's perspective, what I hear a lot what them talk about is kind of like this anxiety around data. There's so much data that merchants and marketers have to deal with, like SEO data, PPC, advertising, on-site sales, web analytics, everything like that. So when we talk about data collection, what do you mean?
Yeah, so to kind of set the scene, when we talk about data collection, we are talking about a shopper on an e-commerce website that is viewing products, adding to cart, and ultimately purchasing. So data collection is the process of capturing each unique shopper's behavior. You can collect data like exposed data, like a product name. What's the name of the product that the shopper just added to their cart? You can capture behind the scenes data, such as like a product SKU or product ID, something that's not innately visible on the website. And you can also capture user attribute data, like what's your shopper's IP address or email address. So that's what we mean when we talk about data collection.
Okay, cool. So we're collecting this data, and then once we collect it, how do like my clients, for example, use it to their benefit?
Yeah. So collecting the data is one piece, but you hit on another good part. Is the second point of this is data delivery. So you collect the data, but then you ultimately need to deliver it back to the marketing destination. So this could be data sent to, for example, Google Analytics. So you can visualize what actions your shoppers are taking on your website. You can ask the question, how does a shopper interacting with my review software affect their conversion rate? You could also send the data to Google Ads, for example, to create a remarketing audience for people who maybe added an item to their cart but didn't purchase. You can also send the data back to Facebook to optimize, to use Facebook's lookalike audience feature and use its optimization and the clean data to do better audience matching. So data delivery is a key second piece of this here.
Okay, very cool. There are a few terms used in referring to this type of data collection, and let's dig a little deeper in this. Pixels, tags, JavaScript, they seem to be often like used interchangeably. I think we should discuss if they really are interchangeable or are they referring to different things?
David, there are so many terms and acronyms in this industry. It's kind of overwhelming when you first start out. So yes, let's talk about some differences. So first thing you said difference in a pixel versus a tag, and they are used interchangeably, but they're actually two different things. So a marketing pixel, it actually gets its name from the screen resolution pixels on your TV and on your computer that show you items. So a marketing pixel is an actual 1-by-1 pixel graphic. So it's a pixel graphic that allows a third party to track that user behavior on your website, very similar to a cookie. Now, a tag, on the other hand, is a little different. So as a website grows, you might need to collect more data or unique specific data. So if your marketing channel supports it, you can collect more data by adding more code through the use of tags. So tags often referred to as pixels, but they're more or less self-contained code snippets that can be added to a website for additional functionality. So you can add a specific tag to track a specific button click. Now, you also mentioned JavaScript. So sometimes you'll hear a marketing destination say, hey, add this JavaScript to your website. So JavaScript is the coding language that those tags are written in. So when they say, hey, add this JavaScript to your website, they're more or less saying add this tag to your website. So that's kind of the
cool.
breakdown.
Awesome. So it sounds like pixels, JavaScript, okay, everything like that. That's like kind of my tool belt for data analytics. All right. So, and I'm sure anyone here that uses Google Analytics has probably heard of the term data layer. So from your perspective, Jerica, what's the difference between a data layer and then the terms you just explained?
Yeah, so a data layer is what Google recommends you use to maximize Google Analytics tracking functionality. At a very, very high level, a data layer passes data to Google Tag Manager for your tags to use.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper in that. When you say for tags to use, what do you mean? How does this work, and like what would be the purpose?
Oh, we're getting a little technical now.
Yeah.
Okay, so a data layer, it's like a middleman. So it sits on top of the website and it basically passes data to Google Tag Manager. So it passes data like when a shopper views a product and what product they viewed. The value of a data layer is it really helps to standardize your data collection. So let's say instead you just have 3 hard-coded scripts on your website, one for Facebook, one for Snapchat, one for Google Analytics. Because they're all separate scripts, hard-coded on the website, they're going to fire at different times. So a shopper views an item. Let's say the Facebook script fires first. It's going to collect data, and then it's going to deliver data. Then your Snapchat script will run. It'll try to collect the same data and send it. Then Google Analytics will run, try and collect the same data and send it. They all run at different times. With a data layer, the data collection happens one time. Data is collected once, and then Facebook, Snapchat, Google Analytics all pull from the same data source, from that same data that's already been collected. Basically helps ensure that everyone is speaking the same language, because we want Facebook to be speaking English. We want Google Analytics to be speaking English. That's the core value.
Okay, so we brought up these big companies like Facebook and everything like that. So what I think about when I think about Facebook is this huge company with a lot of data, a lot of insights, and you kind of expect them to know everything. So wouldn't they already know this information? Like, what's the benefit in sending this information to them?
Yeah, you're right. So Facebook, big company, employs a lot of data engineers to do a lot of cool optimization stuff, but they still need to get access to the data. It still needs to be talking about the same data, the same clean data that all the other marketing channels are talking about. So in order to use the most, Facebook's optimizations, lookalike audience features, it's machine learning technologies, you still have to send it the clean data that all the other marketing channels are using. So really about that data delivery.
Okay, cool. So I get it now. So data layers help you decide which data to send and like helps you customize everything like that. Okay. So I often work with clients that have highly modified websites and they have unique features like add to carts, calls to actions, a lot of different things they use on their website. Is this the major use case of data layers then?
So data layers definitely help with, highly modified, unique looking websites. So the value here is a data layer can actually allow you to specify when specific website actions should trigger marketing tags. So let's take an example of, a merchant that has an add to cart functionality on their collection pages via maybe like a quick view and a quick ad. So this is like a non-standard implementation of the add to cart. It might not use Shopify's native form elements for this add to cart functionality. So maybe a standard, implementation setup wouldn't fire an add to cart on that specific button click because it's not using Shopify's native elements. A data layer, so Elevar, our data layer, for example, we actually listen for these unique scenarios so that we can fire the add to cart when they occur. That way you're talking about holistic, all the add to carts that are actually happening on your website. Again, we want to see the entire target.
Awesome. I like that we're talking about Shopify now. I have a lot of clients that use Shopify, like the vast majority of my clients. And I know Elevar works with Shopify, Shopify Plus. What's the difference between plugins that come with Shopify and what you can do with Google Tag Manager?
Yeah, so Shopify does have a lot of native integrations with Google Analytics, with Facebook, TikTok, what have you. And really there's pros and cons to each option. It's less of a which one's better, it's more of a which one's better for my business. So like native apps, native plugins, they're quick and easy to set up, take us like a few minutes. They'll actually load faster than Google Tag Manager, and they typically cover all of your standard events. So that being said, native apps can also kind of be a black box. For example, I had a customer who was using the native Shopify Facebook plugin for a very long time, worked very, very well for them for a very long time. And then one day it just stopped firing the initiate checkout event. And it's kind of a black box when that happens. Like we don't have access to the back end of Shopify. The customer doesn't have back end access to that code base of that native plugin. So you can't really troubleshoot that and fix it because it's kind of like a black box. With Google Tag Manager, you can control exactly when things fire. If something stops firing, I can figure out why and I can make sure that it will fire, essentially. So more control, especially when plugins become unreliable. Native plugins, they also only work on Shopify pages. So if you use third-party checkouts or third-party landing pages, native plugins won't fire tracking on those pages. With Google Tag Manager, so long as you can add that Google Tag Manager script to a page, you can fire GTM. So a lot more flexibility there. And also, GTM just gives you a higher level of control and customization than you can with plugins. You can add GDPR, privacy, consent logic into Google Tag Manager. You can delay specific pixels from firing so that you can optimize site speed. You can send custom events with GTM. So just a lot more customization and robustness with Google Tag Manager. So that's kind of the balance.
I love that black box analogy. I feel like a lot of my clients are experiencing that same thing. They, they have questions about how can we fix this, or this isn't working. And I kind of looking at it like, it's hard to do without, having Google Tag Manager.
Mm-hmm.
So back to data collection, are there any differences between Shopify and Shopify Plus, especially like, with the unique conversion elements like in the checkout?
Yeah. So tracking on Shopify Plus stores versus non-Plus stores. So actually they're mostly identical, but one big key difference is with the checkout tracking. So for a very long time, non-Plus stores, Shopify wouldn't allow you to have access to your checkout.liquid. So that means because you can't change the code on the checkout.liquid, that means you can't add Google Tag Manager script to your checkout pages. So you cannot track behavior on the first, second, or third page of checkout on non-Plus stores. With Plus stores, Shopify has always allowed you access to your checkout.liquid. That means you can have full tracking on your checkout pages. So for example, you can fully populate the checkout behavior report in Google Analytics. Now, I have heard recently that I believe that Shopify at their last Unite announced that this could be changing, that they might be allowing non-Plus stores to have to have access to their checkout liquid. Be awesome if that's the case. I haven't seen any crazy changes yet, but I think that might be in the works. And one other item I want to add on here is we talked about plugins just a minute ago. So checkout tracking, Google Tag Manager, you can't get checkout tracking on non-Plus stores. But if you use Shopify's native Google Analytics integration, it supports checkout tracking on the first page of checkout only. So you can get that first page of checkout on a non-Plus store if you use the native integration. So my recommendation, so if you're a non-Plus store, you're evaluating, should I use the native Google Analytics app or should I use Google Tag Manager? Typically would recommend using the native app. However, once we start adding in server-side tagging as an option, my recommendation does change.
Okay, server-side tagging. I'm glad you brought this up because I don't think we can have this discussion without diving into that. And I've heard lots of promises for it in terms of like data collection. Do you know a lot about that? Can you tell me why?
Yeah, server-side tagging, it's the future. It's the latest in tracking methodology. So it's actually an API-based tracking method. It helps you get more data. It helps you get better data. Kind of the three key value propositions here are: one, server-side tagging, it's order creation-based tracking. So compare this to traditional browser-based tags. They're load-based. That means we need the thank you page to fully load for the tracking to fire and the data to be sent. If a shopper navigates away from the thank you page too quickly, tracking never loads, data never gets sent. With server-side, the trigger is an order being created in Shopify. Means it doesn't matter how long the shopper stays on the thank you page, so long as that order gets created in Shopify, that triggers the data to be sent. So retailers see a lot better order data accuracy with server-side versus traditional browser. Second key value proposition with server-side is you can actually send the request from your domain. So that allows you to do cool things like bypass ad blockers. And then third key benefit, and this is a future benefit. So industry is not there yet, but third key benefit is server-side's going to start to help with site speed. So because server-side tracking is sent offline via an API, that means you don't need to run global JavaScript on your website. And your website can actually focus on loading its content and not marketing pixels. So we're not there yet. That's definitely going to be a future benefit, but excited for when that comes.
Yeah, okay, that sounds really exciting to me. The only thing I can think of with that is, are there certain types of merchants? Are there certain merchants that like should be looking at server-side tracking or shouldn't?
Yeah, so basically we think that most merchants will want to move to server-side tagging because they'll value having that 99% order accuracy in Google Analytics, in Facebook, or whatever marketing destination or affiliate that they're using. So we actually have a great story about this pertaining to a customer who is running affiliate tracking. So we have a customer who does affiliate marketing. They had one affiliate that was driving $200,000 in revenue for them. So significantly high value affiliate they were using. This affiliate threatened to leave them because they weren't getting attributed all the conversions they believed that they were driving. So because of the mismatch of the number of orders in Shopify versus the affiliate platform, that affiliate wanted to go to promote a different thing and actually get paid more. With Serverside, so we got this customer on Serverside tracking, got to our 95% conversion accuracy guarantee. Affiliate now gets paid exactly what they drive. Affiliate is happy. So happy story all around. Basically, that data accuracy is the key thing to look out for if you need server-side.
That's awesome. And I love talking about accuracy. I think that's super important to consider. So I'm thinking about this. Are merchants collecting their conversion data? How can they tell it's accurate? Like you even mentioned that channels like Facebook also often have inaccurate data, but how can a merchant tell?
Yeah. So the easiest item is merchants should start by using Shopify as their point of truth. So best way to do this, look at the total number of orders created in Shopify for a time frame, and then look at the number of transactions reported in Google Analytics or whatever marketing platform that you're comparing it to. Do they match? If no, how far off are the numbers? That's how you can figure out about the data accuracy.
Okay, so how do you do that? How does a merchant reconcile what Shopify is telling them with what their marketing channels are reporting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So many times we will hear a retailer telling us, hey, Pinterest is saying it drove 30 sales yesterday. And my email marketing platform is saying it drove 25 sales yesterday. But I only had 35 sales that day total. How can my marketing channels be saying, I got more orders than were actually placed? Who should actually take credit for those orders? So in my opinion, I believe that both of those marketing channels are technically correct. And let me give you an example for why. So I love Vessi shoes. I have known for a while I'm going to buy a pair of Vessi shoes. So I signed up for their email list because I was waiting for a sale. They emailed me, I think 2 weekends ago, hey, we have a sale going on that day. I got the email, I clicked through the email, I browsed the site, the pair of shoes I wanted was not on sale. So I left the website, continued about my day. Later that evening, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I get retargeted with a Vessi shoe ad. I click through it. I say to my husband, hey, I want these pair of shoes, but they're not on sale. He says, go for it, buy it. I buy through that Facebook ad. Just because Facebook is the last marketing destination that touched me doesn't mean I want to stop investing in the other marketing channels that assisted with that conversion. Facebook would have never had the opportunity to convert me if I hadn't been interactive with the email platform beforehand. So attribution here, it's kind of gray. It's not like a firm answer, but it is kind of correct. We need to understand how the multi-channel funnel works and where's that user's path to purchase going and base it off that.
Okay, that's really interesting. So thinking about that, how does Google Analytics themselves decide what marketing channel to give credit to?
Yeah, so this is a twofold answer. So first, in terms of a per session basis, so every time you visit a website, how do you know what the attribution is for that website visit? So this is actually a twofold priority for Google Analytics. First, Google is going to look for any UTM parameters. So UTM parameters are like small little snippets of code that you put in a ad URL. So they show up in the ad URL. They say something like source equals Facebook, medium equals paid. Anytime those UTM parameters are in the URL, they're like a trump ball for that visit. Google's going to rely on them first. Now, if they aren't there, then Google is going to rely on what it calls the original referrer. So Google's tracking what web page you are on prior to visiting the merchant's website. So the original referrer is the URL the customer was on before they landed on your site. So that attribution will show up like facebook.com/referral. So that's how Google decides the attribution per session. Now, all of its native reports are going to be last touch attribution by default, but Google does give really solid multi-channel attribution reports and assisted conversion reports that give you that better full picture of how many different marketing channels may not have been the last touch, but helped drive those conversions, gave the assist.
Jerica, you're so smart. I love it. Okay, speaking about Google Analytics, I think at Hawk, we have a lot of questions about Google Analytics, their announcement to sunset Universal Analytics, as I'm sure you're aware. And I don't think we can end our discussion here without spending a little time on this. So what did you think about that announcement?
David, I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that Universal Analytics would be sunsetted. I kind of knew, I thought it would happen eventually, but I didn't think it was going to happen for another 5 years, maybe even 10 years. So I was surprised it happened so quickly.
Yeah, I think it's like there's a lot of expectations there. You're expecting people to know both platforms, and then kind of make the switch. And so I don't know. I'm not sure kind of what their angle is, but were you surprised by the timing of it?
Yes. So the timing is truthfully what got me, because, well, honestly, because GA4 is not where I thought it would be yet. GA4 has a strong value proposition. Do not get me wrong. But I still find that Universal Analytics is easier to understand and easier to use. So I thought this change would occur when GA4 was more built out. That being said, now that it's happened, merchants can really easily get set up on GA4 with Elevar. We actually have a step-by-step guide that we're going to send out after the webinar that's going to walk you through how to use our pre-built tags for GA4. So not to fear, we can still work with it.
Which is one of my favorite features of Elevar is the pre-built tags, like we've discussed before. I love that. So what should we expect with GA4 moving forward? What do you think?
Oh, man. Well, number one, I think we're probably going to have a lot of rapid feature enhancement for GA4 this year, kind of to help reduce that reporting gap compared to Universal Analytics that I talked about before. So I expect a lot of feature enhancements with GA4 this year. I also expect a lot of agencies and tech companies, us included, are probably going to start rolling out a lot more education and training on GA4 to really help get retailers ready. And I kind of also anticipate that people are going to use Google Data Studio a lot more. I think Google Data Studio is going to become, your new best friend to help you rebuild some of those common universal analytics reports that you're used to. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's exciting. I think this whole conversation is exciting. It's kind of got me amped up, especially to have new conversations with my clients, talk about these things. Like I said earlier, I think understanding data, understanding how to utilize it for your benefit is probably the biggest opportunity I see with merchants in general, especially with my clients. And I think I hope this kind of discussion was beneficial for people here today. But I think that's kind of a good point to kind of bring in some questions. Darren, were there any questions that came in from the audience?
Yeah, we have a couple. Thanks. Okay, the first one probably for you, Jerica. How does Elevar's Facebook conversion API compare to Shopify's Facebook CAPI?
That is a good one. Yeah, so Shopify's native Facebook integration, it does have CAPI capabilities, which is Facebook's server-side capabilities. I think the number one key difference here is the order creation based tracking. So server-side tracking doesn't always have to be order creation tracking. It can actually be load based, and that's how Shopify's native integration is. It's load based server-side tracking. Elevar's, the way we've built it, it has that order creation based tracking that triggers when an order is created in Shopify, and that's how we get to that 95% order accuracy guarantee. So I think that's the number one key difference between Elevar's conversion API integration with Facebook versus Shopify's native one.
Okay. Another one has to do with server side. So if a company, if a merchant is using tracking today with GTM, they're on client side, right? They're all set up. Now they want to start utilizing server side. How major of a project is it to convert over to server side?
It depends. So you don't need to use Elevar to do server-side tracking. You can build it completely on your own if you want. In my opinion, server-side tracking, it's like building a car, right? Do you know how to build a car? I don't know how to build a car. So I could not build server-side from scratch. Well, instead of building a server-side from scratch, you can lease Elevar's server-side car. So we make it a lot easier for you to set up server-side tracking. It doesn't need to be a giant project. We have capabilities of using, if you want to use your own server, but the easier method is we can actually let you use our own servers. So we own and maintain servers and allows you to quickly, easily in a few days, get set up with server-side.
Okay, all right. And here's one on GA4, and as things are rolling out for GA4 and merchants are having to prepare their strategy for migrating to GA4, the question is about when do we think that those integrations, right, will be as common and as seamless as they are today with third-party tools? And you may not have a sense of that. It's a little crystal ballish, right? But
I honestly think it's going to happen this year. So I think that everyone is focused on GA4 this year. I think we're going to see a lot more additional marketing platforms and data software tools building those integrations with GA4. Anyone that has a universal analytics integration, their focus is going to be on building GA4. So I expect this year.
Yeah, I would imagine that. And this person also specifically talked about one of our other our technology partners. And I will say that as the person that's ahead of the technology partnerships, I do know that everyone has their eye on those GA4 integrations, and we have our eye on that ball certainly, and making sure that we're aligned with all of our technology partners and that everyone is coming together around GA4. Another question for you, and I've actually responded to this person also privately, but I'm going to bring it up here. And that is when it comes to headless sites, and Jerica, we know, and I'm sure David, you've seen, right? We're all seeing a lot more headless sites. Now, for Elevar, our headless sites still have that Shopify cart, so presumably there's a way then to look at your checkout funnel because it's still that Shopify cart, even though it's a headless front end. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if it's a Shopify Plus site that uses the Shopify checkout, then you can get Google Tag Manager on all pages of the checkout versus using a native app, which will only track the first page.
Okay. All right. And that may be it. And Jerica, just to let you know, you and I are going to follow up with that person offline as well. All right. Well, it looks like we've covered all of our questions for today. I really want to thank everybody that attended. You will all receive the link for the recording. And I'm going to leave this open just for a minute or two after everyone logs off, just in case you had another question you wanted to type in. Feel free to do so, and we'll make sure to address any other questions. But you see on the screen right now emails so that you can get a hold of both Elevar and Hawk Media. Please reach out to us at these emails with any questions you may have, or if you just need some assistance from either one of our companies. This has been wonderful, very educational. David and Jerica, thank you so very much. And we look forward to doing some more of these with Hawk Media. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.